Hello, everybody. So we're back for a career and spirituality conversation. I am Julie Pone. I support spiritual seekers having a career experience to feel fulfilled in their work endeavors. And here I am with Iskra Petrova. Hi, Iskra. How are you today?
Hi, Julie. I'm amazing and so excited to have this conversation with you and with your audience.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Iskra. So before we're going to do our little grounding first, so then I can introduce you and we won't interrupt the flow. And I'm very excited to have a chat with you today. Okay.
Likewise.
Okay, so for everyone who's in a position to do so, don't close your eyes if you're in a car or doing something fancy. But if you can, just close your eyes and we're going to take just a couple of deep breaths and pressing our feet on the floor to just connect with the earth underneath, with the ground, having the intention to ground ourselves. And then bringing back our attention and focus into our chest area, in the middle of the chest where the heart is, and imagining as if our breath is flowing in and out through our heart. And as we're doing so, breathing a little bit deeper and a little bit slower than we usually do. And let's just take another few slow, deep breaths for a minute together. Okay. Beautiful. So thank you. With the last breath, well, the last deep breath, let's open our eyes again, bringing ourselves back, and ta-da! So Iskra, nice to meet you, Iskra. And Iskra is a clarity and confidence coach and self-empowerment mentor for change makers. And we've met fairly recently just on LinkedIn, interacting on LinkedIn. So I'm very excited because this is also our first real one-on-one conversation. So we are discovering each other as much as you people are discovering Iskra today. So that's very exciting. So Iskra, as you know, I always start these conversations with two questions. And the first one is, what's your definition or your relationship to spirituality?
That's a very deep question. And I was thinking about how to answer. And then I said, okay, let me be in the flow. Let me connect with the energy of the space. And let me check. I think I will start back, long way back in my childhood, when I grew up in this socialist country back then. And this topic was not really popular. It was not even allowed. Spirituality, religion. There were some popular, maybe New Age books, but not that many. But I started noticing things that I had no idea that I could relate later to spirituality. I started sensing my energy. My energy was a bit different. I was very sensitive. My dad, he was a headmaster of, maybe we could translate it best as a college, technical college. So whenever I would go visit him and in the hall full of computers, I would have headache. I also noticed that sometimes when I'm near to some equipment, the equipment will start all of a sudden work properly after being broken for some weeks. So this is not directly related to spirituality, but it's something related to my energy awareness, let's say. Then a bit later, I started seeing some symbols, became very sensitive to the energy of different of other people. And I think my first conscious encounter with spirituality was when I was about, I think I was 15, when I started reading the books of Carl Gustav Jung, who is very spiritual. And I was not an unusual child, like having Carl Gustav Jung be my favorite author around this age. But I was so fascinated by the stories, by the myths, by the connections with the important characters, with the archetypes, with the heroes from different civilizations. And to be honest, actually, this interest in what is going on, what is connecting people around the world is rooted in much younger age. So connecting with these universal human stories, exploring the magic, exploring the transformations, comparing the stories in the Bible, in the Quran, in the other ancient scripts from different cultures and religions was something that really fascinated me. And I even I had a dream to study comparative anthropology or religions, because I was so curious to discover that people all around the world, they have similar aspirations. We find similar hero journeys that simply differ by the name and some other elements. But this is something that I could say was my very first, maybe connection, very unconscious, very unaware, but it opened highways for me to continue exploring later the different practices. I started practicing Qigong in 1994 or 5, I think, after a big awakening during a long stay in hospital. I would say that connecting with my energy and inducing meditation without knowing that I was doing that helped me recover faster from tuberculosis back then. And then my interest was sparkled into what actually happened. So I started reading the books of Louise Hay. I signed up for 5-level courses with a Chinese doctor who taught me Qigong and intentionally practicing mindfulness. Then I started practicing Tai Chi Chuan. So it's been a very long journey, but the conscious practices started back then in, I think, 1994. Okay. So it's almost 30 years. Next year it will be 30 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've had you were very open at the start. You were not guided or forced into a specific line. You just discovered everything by yourself and made some choices along the way.
Absolutely. I was very much encouraged in exploring the world. Like, my family was always very supportive. We were all book lovers. My dad's library is of more than 10,000 different volumes on different topics. And he's also very encyclopedian person. He was a teacher, and I always admired him, the richness of his approach to teaching, to school. And they always, my parents always supported us, me and my siblings, to read, to discover, to explore, and to develop our talents. So there were no limitations, nothing was forbidden. And we had these open conversations at home, telling stories, watching movies of journeys, of adventures, and magic and transformation. It's been a very fascinating internal world while I was growing up. And then I always explored whatever came my way, and in this natural way, like connecting consciously with spirituality as an effect of this life-threatening illness, I would say, and then choosing or following my heart and my sister's guidance. She's always been kind of a teacher for me because she always was 1-2 steps ahead, exploring this territory. So yeah, I think I was lucky to grow up or to appear for the people who believe in soul's choice to choose the family, the parents. Yeah, I'm grateful for my parents, for my family, and for my environment. And later there were many things. I have explored shamanism, the modern way. I'm a Reiki master. I'm a Bowen therapist at a level that involves also distant work, chakra energy reader, and so many other things. I work with emotions, and these are not necessarily related to particular spirituality or to religion, but they all involve this holistic approach to our being. We're not simply our body or the mind separately, but we're so many layers with so much depth on every layer. So it helps to also connect with other people and acknowledge, while acknowledging our differences, to see what is the common thing that unites us.
Yeah, and like you, that connection to like the energy of what makes us, well, what connects everything. So like you had it from you felt it from an early age, and actually I'm amazed as like because we don't know that. It's like you're presenting yourself as a coach, and there's like all of these modalities underneath that are probably shaping, I imagine they shape how you're working with people. And so actually it's a great segue into my second usual question, because now you're working as a coach, but I've seen that you've started your professional journey started with film production at an international level. So that's super interesting. So I'm very intrigued. I was like, how did you go from one to the other? Like, I'm pretty sure there's some interesting twists and turns.
Yes, this is a very interesting question that people always ask me, because it's not an obvious thing to happen, right? But I started actually my career in 1995. After I was for a couple of years, I worked in commerce, in trade. I started working in one of the biggest strategic advertising or corporate brand advertising companies, communication networks, and naturally this brought me into the world of film production, because back then, before around late 90s, we had to start producing in Bulgaria the first commercials locally for our big clients with the biggest brands. I'm not going to mention the names. And then, because there were no experience on the local market, we had to bring in foreign producers. So for one of the biggest projects on the market in the country, we brought the biggest film production company from Greece. Back then, we connected, we had a really successful campaign. Then I was invited to move to Greece and be part of this company. And this is how I got into this very exciting and very glamorous business. And I found it very good for me, because it combines all the different aspects of my interest. There was needed strategy, organization. I am a computer scientist by education, so this natural tendency of putting things in order and calculations and finding magic behind the numbers, this is something very important for a film producer who has to deal with money and budgets and timing and all these very important parameters. Also, there is the creativity part. I'm also a jewelry designer. I mean, this is something that we haven't spoken.
You're what designer? You are?
Jewelry. I made accessories and jewelry. Yes, I didn't mention that, but now it's
surprise.
it's a natural way to say it. I had opened one of the first e-commerce online boutiques in my country in 2002, I think, back then. So I'm fascinated by art and style and design. So this is also something that is covered by the work of the film producer. There is a communication, there is leadership, there is management. So this is such a versatile place to be. So I really felt in my place as a fish in the water, being a film producer, and it was very interesting to connect people from different countries, from even different industries, because when you work on something really challenging, you have to invent some solutions. So it's been an amazing journey. But then time came when I had to make the transition, and it wasn't an overnight thing, as our audience might guess.
So on paper, as you're describing it, and also as you're speaking, you know, I'm in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, like the idea of exploration that you mentioned earlier sounds like, you know, all that excitement into that one industry that seems perfect on paper. So what started to maybe rub you against, you know, what started to nudge you out of
this business, out of this industry? This is a great question, and I'm really so grateful for you asking these two questions, because they kind of give us the answer. Because ever since I discovered the power of working with our body and with our energetics through Qigong and Tai Chi Chuan, I even was a participant at European Championship of Martial Arts.
Jesus Christ.
So many things. Like if I start writing all the elements of my bio, I don't know how many pages we will need. But since then, I never stopped practicing. I even practiced Kung Fu while I was in Greece, because I couldn't find a Tai Chi Chuan master who would be in the tradition that I was practicing here. So I never give up that, and I took care of this harmony of this work, internal work, harmonizing my body, mind, energy, spirit, which actually helped me a lot in the very hectic work as a top or executive in strategic advertising, as well as a film producer. I still remember one of the most challenging projects that we had. We were doing explosions, and I was meditating somewhere behind a truck because I needed to calm myself down, and I had to bring myself together so I could continue with the work and with the process. And so this line kept on. Like I was practicing sometimes 5-6 hours a day, meditating, sitting, standing still, or doing it while I was practicing Tai Chi. I would get up in the morning and go and do Tai Chi from 7 till 9. Then at 9, I would go to my office. And then in the evening, I would go for 3-4 hours, practice again. So this was something so important and so essential for my well-being, physical or emotional. And with the time, as my career progressed and as the responsibilities started growing up, because I became a partner in the business, in several businesses, film production businesses, the load of the stress, the fact that sometimes I couldn't really choose which type of projects to work on, and I had to do some compromises that were not really that are not aligned totally with my values. There was a moment when the sense of being depleted or not fully fulfilled or not in total integrity started becoming hard to bear. So I remember the moment when we had a huge project that we delivered without damages, without stress, without calling ambulances, because this also happens. People don't see it. They don't know what's happening behind the scenes of a big film production or video production process, but we producers know very well. And sometimes we have sleepless nights and we're all the time on alert. We had this successful project, and I didn't feel any sense of fulfillment. I couldn't feel happy. I simply felt empty. I wasn't even glad. I was so numb. Yeah. And this was the moment when I said, okay, enough is enough. And it's time to start making the transition. But I have already started training as a coach. I have already enrolled in several personal development processes. I was already working with my spiritual teachers because I discovered a couple of amazing healers and therapists who supported me in an amazing way, supported me on my journey of self-discovery. And when it wasn't possible anymore to continue in the way I did, then I started doing things part-time. I started being involved more as an advisor until gradually I transitioned totally out, and I left this business in the hands of my elder son.
Okay. So when, you mentioned that particular project, at that stage, did you already have in mind that you were going to unwind, or was it the big wake-up call? It was like, oh my God, I didn't realize, but now I just can't do this anymore.
It was, so I have already started exploring how I can support other people, which was bringing me a bigger sense of fulfillment. Okay. I have started discovering myself, and now I know that one of my archetypes is of a nurturer. I'm working with sacred money archetypes and several other modalities. You remember my passion about Carl Gustav Jung, and discovering my nature and realizing that sometimes I'm forcing myself to not be me, to not be authentic, was actually the thing that make me put two and two together and understand that I have to follow my nature. I have to discover my passion, because this is not an easy thing to discover. What is your passion? There are so many things that you're interested about. And it's also very, it's frightening to make a choice to step out of something which is certain, which is secure, with the reputation, with the experience, being featured in the industry magazines, going every year to the Cannes festivals and other international events, and then choosing to start from the zero as a new coach without any background, without experience, was a bit scary. Not a bit, a lot scary. And that's why I'm so passionate when I'm supporting change makers, as you said in the beginning, people who feel that they have this calling to help others, to change the world for better, to create ripple effects, even if this is in their small community or in their families. I feel them. I know all the tension, all the doubts, I know all the pains, and because I've been there, I went through that.
Yeah. Sonia, when you were talking about, at some stage, it looked great on paper, but then you had to compromise and do projects that were going maybe against your values, but you were already involved in your spiritual growth and personal development. I find that once we start getting a foot into connecting with ourselves, and we start on that journey, then our level of tolerance for the misaligned, the little misalignments is less and less. It is nearly as it produces more negative karma. I think we can stay doing something totally misaligned for a long time with not that much consequences.
Yeah.
if we are not, as long as we are not doing any spiritual development on the side, because ignorance is bliss, right? And as soon as we start to like really open up and getting connected with ourselves, now staying into the misaligned job now becomes a conscious choice to go against our own nature or to go against ourselves. And that's, no, the word sin comes to me, which is not usually a word that I use, but
you are absolutely right. I totally resonate with what you just said, and something like that happened with me. And when I say that things were happening that were not aligned with my values, I want our audience and you to not think that there were big mishaps and there was something really dangerous or big mistake. No, I simply speak about situations like there is a conflict between two crew members who create tension or maybe a bit of negative emotion around them, but I'm not in a position to replace them because they are great specialists in their work or because they are proteges of the film director or of the client, and without them the project will not happen. And I know that everyone who is in any kind of business recognizes this type of situations, but for me this was kind of piling up, and I think it was my time to find something to find a cause or to create my own journey, to discover myself on my own, to recreate myself from scratch. It wasn't actually from scratch. We know that we mentioned already the steps from before. I also believe that we are carrying lots of knowledge or imprints from parallel life or past lives, whatever there is. I cannot say for sure, but I sometimes receive some nudges, information that I certainly know it's not from what is going on around me. So there was a moment when I just felt enough is enough. Mm-hmm. And then we had a conversation with my business partner because I'm not alone in this business, and now the company is running. My son is in charge of it, and he's the most amazing and the most appropriate young, active male with strong energy. There was a moment when I simply couldn't stand anymore the stress and the huge pile of anxiety, even financial sometimes, when clients are late to pay us for 6 months or 1 year, or sometimes this is the tradition or the practice in this type of business. And I wasn't able to understand, or I denied to continue receiving this type of conditions because I simply have changed, because my growth, as I already said, was going on. I was working on myself in parallel, and it felt as if I'm living two separate lives, two different lives. It was a bit schizophrenic, right? So here I have my 6, 7, 8 hours a day working on myself and my energy, and then the other part of my awake day is into this other type of work. And then there was a big conflict, even energetically. I think there was too much maybe masculine energy in this type of work that I was doing, and it was time for me to shift and to move and start doing something that was more aligned, not just with my values, but also with my energy, with my being, that was more appropriate to my body, being able to sleep for as long as I want or whenever I want. Sometimes I take a nap in the middle of the day. Sometimes I get up at 3 a.m. when I feel a huge impulse of inspiration, which is not possible when you are set into this type. Like, it's very close to a corporate business, the film production business.
Something attracted my attention because you said you had the straw that broke the camel's back was on one project. You mentioned it was one project that for once had no mishaps. It's one that went smooth, and it's the smooth project that somehow got you to realize, oh, I don't like it anymore. So I'm just making well, it's a bit of a theory, but I'm just wondering, is it possible that up until then the stress was actually something that was keeping you locked into keeping going, that you couldn't even see the level at which you were disconnected from it, and you needed to have an experience of the work in good conditions to realize that, oh no, actually I really don't want this anymore. Is there something there? Or
no, it wasn't exactly like that, even though this type of situation might be possible, but it wasn't in my case. In my case, actually, the thing that tipped the scales was that my youngest son, he was traveling with me for the shoots, for the projects, and in this particular project, that was the last project that I consciously decided that it's enough, this is the last one. I wasn't able to see him for 10 days. I would get up and go out, get out of home with my driver before he wakes up in the morning. And then whenever I came back at home late at night, he was already asleep, so I couldn't see him. And realizing that my son is growing up and I'm not present in his life, and it's not worth it. So maybe this was the thing that, again, I'm speaking about the balance between feminine and masculine. I wasn't enough feminine in this role, like the handling projects with such high level of responsibility requires lots of male energy, and it was my time to be more into the feminine energy.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So, you said that you started to get on the quest to like a different aspect of yourself that you were going to piece together to do something different. So what were the clues that you followed in order to piece something different for yourself that maybe could inspire our audience?
Yes. So from the perspective of now, with the knowledge that I have now, looking back how my journey unfolded, what I can say is the question about what is your purpose is a huge question and very heavy question. I just had 2 conversations today in one of the group sessions, coaching sessions that I host, and also with another person. And asking this question, what is my purpose, could be a very heavy and troubling question, because the answer is not always easy. So what I advise everyone who is searching to find themselves is to look for the one simple, easy step that is possible to be taken now. So if we find ourselves in a place that we don't feel fulfilled, we don't feel satisfied, we feel stuck, the very simple question that we can ask ourselves is, first, where do I find myself today? What is going on in my life? And people avoid this question because they are afraid of the answers that they're going to receive. But I like to ask them to check every area of their life. They may use the Wheel of Life, they may use a different self-exploration or self-coaching tool, and check what is going on in my life. And when they see that, okay, am I happy with my relationships, my intimate relationship? Am I happy with the relationship with my children? Am I happy with the progress in my career? Am I happy with the money I make? Am I make or earn or whatever we're not getting fixated around the words. Am I happy with my health? How I look like? Do I have enough fun? Do I have enough joy in my life? Enough freedom? And when you check where you are, then with this clarity that you acquire, then you can say, okay, for me, a priority now is to bring more safety in my life. So maybe I have to focus now in bringing or creating more abundance. So then it's easy to take one step that will bring us closer to this small or single goal. But asking the general question, what can I do with my life now? What could be the answer? There is no certain or simple answer to this question. And that's why people very often don't ask themselves, any of these self-exploration questions. So the very first thing is to check where you stand right now. Are you happy with the friends around you? Do they support you? Are you happy with the physical environment? Do you have spiritual environment? Do you have a community? And then find for yourself what is important right now. What will, changing just one thing, what will change your overall sense of well-being? And from then, when you get to this next step, then you will ask another type of questions, and then you will be able to move forward. So it's not a simple journey, but it is a possible journey. And what I discovered for myself is that if I had a coach back then, if I had someone to trust, if I knew that this was possible, I would certainly go for that. And this would save me lots of time and efforts and sleepless nights. But on the other hand, I appreciate everything that I have been through, because thanks to these experiences, I'm who am I today.
Yeah.
So there is no point for regrets and for self-judgment, but it is important to learn from our experiences so that we can create different plans, or at least explore different possible scenarios for our next simple best steps.
Yeah, so what I hear is that you just took the next step that was available. So
yeah,
what works well? What do I want? What already works well that I want more of, or what doesn't work so well that I want to change? And we just take that step and then move to the next and move to the next. And I'm glad you're mentioning that purpose question, because I totally agree. I find it such the anguish, because I don't even believe that we have one purpose. I think as a spiritual being, if there is a purpose, it's just to experience ourselves. So to have an experience. So there is, I don't think the idea that there is one thing or one purpose that we are meant to find, the anguish behind that question, that, oh my God, if I don't find my purpose, so I like the way you're approaching it in a way that I think puts back the journey in and the process as the most important part. I think that's why we're here, like to experience the journey rather than find necessarily the outcome, like the purpose. So like the voyage, do we say that in English? Voyage, the travel, the journey is more important or as important as the,
I'm so happy that you're bringing that, because it's exactly what the Taoism is about. And I'm very deeply connected with that. I'm so connected with the traditional Chinese medicine and the Taoist philosophy. It stems both from my practices as martial artist, as well as from my interest from before, like studying Carl Gustav Jung's work. Of course, he worked with Tao Te Ching and I Ching, and it's fundamental wisdom, and it's exactly that, enjoying the process and finding meaning in every moment and in every next step. It's much more fulfilling and important than setting a goal there and reaching the goal, because while we are walking the path, we're growing and evolving, and in 1 week this goal may not make any more sense, because all of a sudden I had an enlightening moment, or I transformed, or I learned something else, and this is not valid anymore. And here I have developed a tool that I'm teaching my clients. I call it Set the Vector of Intention. I'm so grateful to one of my Tai Chi Chuan teachers. He's very wise, and he's also working with ancient books. He has been translating for us, for his students, ancient scripts with wisdom and theory. And he always taught us to, when we would prepare for combat, because I'm from this school, like practicing Tai Chi, not just for the beauty of this harmonious, slow movements, but actually finding a meaning, what is behind this move. It's slitting your throat, or what is behind this one is pushing you under the arm. So when you know what is the meaning behind every movement, then it all makes sense and it flows naturally and it looks beautiful, because the people who look at it only on the surface, they do it as a ballet, but there is no feeling, there is no meaning behind it. But I started talking about him telling us that when you want to throw your opponent who attacks you, send an intention, create roots in the ground, draw energy from there, and send an intention from your core where you want to throw your opponent. And it happened several times that I was able to throw back men who were 2-3 times heavier and bigger than me, because I learned to organize my whole system and draw energy from there. And I'm so grateful for my practices in martial arts and the Taoism philosophy, because I learned to apply it into my life, into my daily life. So this is what I'm also teaching my clients and my students. Create this vector of intention, a root in the present moment, working with any tool that gives you clarity about where you are. Set an intention where you want to go, but keep it open. Create a vector. Do not put an end, a dot at the end of it, because it's moving, but you know where you want to go. You open a path, you walk through, you start walking this path, and the vector of intention can create further and further. And you are on the right path, even though you don't have very particular goal to achieve. The goals, I consider them important only when they're short term, when we know that I need to make this step, I need to make the other step, I need to achieve this result. But midterm and long term, I believe that more relevant and more useful is setting these intentions and checking whether we are on the right track.
I love that. It reminds me of the word like trajectory. You said the trajectory. Within the trajectory, you're allowing yourself to be flexible.
Absolutely. Be in the flow while still you're guided. And this is also something that I was doing with my children. I don't remember where I learned it from, but what I was doing with them was I would give them the choice to pick up the clothes that they like for today, but I would predetermine the clothes. So I would give them 3 different t-shirts and I would tell them, pick up one. And they have the feeling that they have the freedom of choice, but I have predetermined. And this helps cultivate the sense of style and color and what goes well with the other things. So set the direction, keep it open. You may be flexible and fluid within it, but still you have the direction.
I like it. Somehow it also reminds me of like, and again, I don't know whether this is an absolute truth because I'm not dead yet. I haven't checked on the other side. I don't remember from the other side, but speaking with reading books on spirituality or speaking with people who channel, that we seem that maybe the soul would have, that we are choosing abroad, that there are certain things that we want to experience, so that we're setting up a loose framework for the lifetime, so that we would have like some wiggle room for free will, but yet there is like some things that we are meant to be experiencing, and if we go too much off track, we're going to create an event that's going to put us back into the main trajectory that we seemingly have planned for that lifetime, that spiritually we want to experience. So that's interesting that it seems to be working on that mention as well.
Yes, it's interesting. I have not had experiences exactly in this sense, but thank you for sharing it, because it makes me curious about exploring it. I'm going to use, just for simplicity, the word past life experiences, even though I make the note that they might be not past lives, they might be parallel lives. It might be some illusions of the mind to present some knowledge that doesn't fit. There is no explanation why it comes to us, but I have had these experiences, bodily experiences. I have felt I have heard myself speaking ancient Chinese, ancient French. Maybe this explains why I so quickly learn languages. I need about a week or two, sometimes a month, to learn an European language. Like I started speaking French a week after I was in France. I learned Polish over 1 month while I was in Poland. I started speaking Greek 3 months after I was in Athens. So remembering that, I think, might be an explanation, having these connections. They were not intended. They happened spontaneously, or they happened during some therapy sessions with some of my teachers or healers. But obviously, and definitely, I mean, it's obvious to me that we're much more than what we experience in our physicality and what our mind can grasp. And sometimes we receive these sparks of intuition or sixth senses, or there are several words, particular words about pre-sensing, about what might come. I'm continuously experiencing expansion into this direction. And it's so funny to look at repeating numbers, or to think of someone and they pick up the phone and call me the next second, or to open a book and to find the answer to my questions. This is also another thing that I'm working with my clients, to help them connect with their intuition without becoming obsessed or superstitious about it, because I believe that there are some reasonable and some scientific studies find practical explanations. We know that our brain is not being used to the fullest, so we have so many other senses that maybe we don't have names for them. So I'm developing more and more trust in these sensations, and this is what I also love to work on with my clients: trusting their body, discovering the body wisdom, listening to the messages, listening to the energy, and also stepping outside and observing and analyzing what is this message that is coming, and not allowing to be swamped in the feelings, in the emotions, in the fears, in the doubts. Like, it is human, of course, we go through that, but also we are able to develop skills and practices and habits and rituals to utilize all the knowledge and wisdom that is available to us, whether consciously or unconsciously. We can tap into it, and also we can tap into the collective wisdom, in the collective unconsciousness, and their paths and their ways. And it's so beautiful that there are so many approaches that we can use nowadays.
Yeah. And it's also interesting to be in that discovery. It's interesting because you mentioned a couple of things that you mentioned already. One thing earlier about you sometimes had the sense that maybe you were picking up on a simultaneous or parallel version of, self or lifetime. And I'm reading this book called The Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukav. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but like it resonates with what you're saying, and like with the us having simultaneous experiences. And that's something that I learned in this
reality.
Is informing a version of me living on, having an experience, in the lifetime next door. I'm going to call it like that.
Yes, that's a very interesting concept. Absolutely. Yeah. It's so fascinating. Yeah.
That's so interesting. So there's maybe one not last question, but you were talking about, I'm super interested in like the vector, because you, both in martial art and in life, then creating that vector. So how in practice, how do we get that? You said you're getting that energy from the ground. So how do we do that? And how do we apply this principle in our life? Not necessarily to for self-defense, but what are the steps, and how do you, I'm assuming that you're helping your clients with that, so
I'm helping my clients with that. I'm also teaching it in a 5-day process. I've already done it 5 times, and one is coming soon. So maybe we can share later the information about it, because it will be learning in practice. In doing it, I absolutely love to do experiential learning, not theoretical learning, but very simplified, in a simplified way to share with you and with the audience is, first, we need to have an anchoring point for this vector. To put something in motion, we have to be able to step on something and spring ourselves into motion. This is also a practice that I learned from the martial arts. I remember one of the examples was that learning to be so soft so that we don't get hurt by our opponents is we become so soft. So when a bird lands on our palm, the bird is not able to fly away because we're so soft. It cannot find the opposition, the opposing hard force to jump and open their wings. So what we do with this vector of intention, which is a concept that I developed using the concept of intention or intent in the martial arts, we create the anchoring point, which is the clarity point. So first we take a look at our life and we go through the areas. These are just examples. They could be less, they could be more, that are important for us right now. So for me, it's important my relationship with my children. It is important my career. My friends are important. My physical environment or home. Money is important. My spirituality or personal growth is important. So we take a look at them and then we choose, and there are tools to do that, but I'm simplifying it. We're choosing the area where we want to see progress or where we find it the easiest to make progress. Remember, I always say, take the easy step so that you see progress, you experience a win instantly, so you feel encouraged and empowered to continue. So we find this area, we define what change we would like to see without being very fixated. I don't like vision boards because I think they're limiting. I'm just giving an example. If you say, I want a red Ferrari, then you will stop yourself from having Austin Martin, let's say, or something else. Like if you define so particularly, then you will stop universe giving you something bigger or more interesting or different. So we choose the area, we know where we are, and from here we define the space where we want to grow. So let's say, if I say that my area of fun is not enough, and this is something that I absolutely know that if I experience more fun and joy in my life, this is going to positively impact my friendships, my personal relationship, my level of fulfillment. It will help me bring more clients because they will be attracted to my magnetism. So I'm going to work on the joy. So how do I shoot from here the vector of intention? Where do I want to be in the next 6, 12 months or 3 years? Okay, I want to be traveling. I want to be connecting with more people. I want to be more creative. So this is setting the vector of intention. I throw it there and I feel how my whole energy will be uplifted, how my life will change, but I'm not getting fixated in the details, in the small elements. So I know where I start from. So this is the anchoring point of this vector of intention. And then I mobilize my mind, my heart, and my intuition from my belly. And I'm throwing this desire for this positive change, which is a journey, as if it opens a highway in front of me. And I start walking this journey knowing that exciting, amazing things are ahead of me. So this is very simply, in a very simplified way, this concept of the vector of intention.
So now I understand your I was gonna say your obsession for clarity. It's not an obsession. I'm not finding the word, but because I know you from
Passion, my passion, absolutely.
Yeah, because like you have actually a quiz about finding your clarity archetype.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, it's ready to go in the email for people to to download.
Absolutely, yes.
But yes, through our exchange, our LinkedIn exchange, I could see like you're sharing about clarity, and somehow there is something I couldn't quite grasp around the starting. Well, it makes sense to start with clarity, but there was something, and now it makes total sense. I'm like, now I totally get it. This is the solid ground that we get to spring from.
Absolutely. If we want to see change in our life, many people start externally. Many people start getting programs, courses. They start listening to fixing things, how to fix things, how to make them look differently, but they don't do the deep internal work. So how can you see a lasting, deep transformational change effect if you don't know where are you starting from? What you're doing is you're putting makeup on a wounded skin. You're just covering it, but it's not healing on the depth, in the depth. In order to heal and to have beautiful appearance, you have to change your diet, you have to get more hydrated, you have to sleep, but you have to know where are you starting from. You have to know, you have to make inspection, you have to give diagnosis, and then you will prescribe at least a direction for healing. And this is just a particular metaphor. I never thought about giving it because I'm not really a fan of traditional medicine. Like my whole life, ever since I was in this deep trouble with my health, with tuberculosis, I'm using only natural medicines, herbs, homeopathy, essential oils, Bach essences, floral essences, like all possible stuff that is available now, supplements. But coming back to what we were talking is we need this clarity in order to create a meaningful change. If we start working on the change, fixing things without knowing the root or the cause, it will be only temporary. For some people, this will be enough. But for everyone who is soul searcher, who is a change maker, who wants to first create change within and then outside, because this is the real change, we have to start asking uncomfortable questions. Am I happy with my life? Am I happy with my relationships? Do I have confidence in myself? Do I trust myself in the aspects of health? Do I trust that I will get better? Do I trust that I will find love? Like, it's endless questions that could be asked in every particular situation, but it is important to start asking the questions.
And I know that you're starting, like, the quest for clarity starts with, like, you're introducing some archetypes around, with clarity. So now I can see that that's coming from
my childhood.
Like from your first passion for you. And what does it bring? How does it help with clarity to get to find an archetype?
So the clarity about our personality helps us understand when we are going against our nature and when we're following our natural tendencies. So the concept of archetypes is basically some universal principles that are valid across traditions, across cultures, across civilizations. They're intrinsic, they're into the human nature. So we all carry elements from these archetypes or from the characters of these very popular mythology stories. Like there is the character of the hero. In all of the big stories, there is always a hero, there is always a wise a guy or a sage, the wisdom person who is advising them. There is the ruler or the king. There is the mother or the caregiver or the nurturer. There is the gesture. There is the maverick. So when we start learning more about ourselves, then we step out of the zone of self-blame, because then we say that, okay, I have most of the traits of the nurturer, which means that I will always care about other people. I will always prioritize them. So what do I need to do to feel good myself? I need to learn to create healthy boundaries. How do I do that? I learn these particular techniques, or I start working on creating habits, or I start taking different perspectives. So learning more about our nature, our personalities, and there are so many tools, helps us understand our behavior without judgment. It's very interesting. When I started working with the sacred money archetypes, which is a different taxonomy, it's created by Kendall Summerhawk. I very much respect her as a coach, as a creator. I was so amused to see why in one family there could be conflicts in relation to money, because one of the spouses would be a nurturer or would be an alchemist, and the other would be the banker who is holding on to money, because naturally it comes to them to save money, to trust money, and they would have conflicts without knowing that this is part of their nature. So I had several clients who went through my program, which was Empowered Abundance Mindset. And they had such a revelation, understanding, oh, now I understand my husband. I understand why he's like that. And I was always judging him. And now I understand why he would expect me to behave differently, because he is this type, he is this personality, he has most of the characteristics of this particular archetype. So it's enriching, it's freeing, it's enlightening, it's bringing people together, it helps understand each other and accept each other with the differences. It's really eye-opening. Like, everyone who's been through my workshops on working with the archetypes, the first thing they say, it's eye-opening.
Like, and so to summarize, it seems to me that it's adding up another layer of ground onto which we can step on.
Absolutely. So right. You absolutely got it. And you said it better than me.
Awesome. So Iskra, we're getting towards the end. So my last question is there something that I haven't asked you that I should have, or like some last words or something that you're inspired to share with our people as a closing?
I haven't thought about this question, and I'm so happy that you are asking me, because thinking about it, connecting with you right now, this is I so much love, is that I want to share with people that we can be creators of our lives, and we can learn to become empowered creators of our lives. But it takes a bit of courage to ask some questions, to hear the answers, to ask for help. And this is all human. You don't have to blame yourself for realizing that you need support. You don't have to blame yourself for realizing that you could have been at a higher level, but you are not. This is part of the journey, as we said before. And the key for a happy and fulfilled life is acknowledging where we are and appreciating our journey and appreciating our courage to be here and now, and taking the steps and pushing through and moving forward and falling and raising up. This is amazing courage, amazing. And this is how we grow, how we evolve, and we all really have power within to make our life the way not we want. Sometimes we don't want right when we do it through the mind, but we have the capacity of change. Sometimes it requires deeper healing, but it also starts from the awareness that I need support, I'm doing so much, I'm not seeing progress, I need to call for a specialist, a therapist, a healer, whatever is appropriate and whatever the mindset and the understanding allows for. But we have this power to make a choice.
We have this power to make a choice. Perfect. I have nothing to add. Perfect parting words. My God, thank you so much, Iskra. That was a very rich and insightful conversation. I'm amazed at the depth of your and variety of your experience. And I'm super grateful to have had you for a full hour with us. And we'll share all of your information, sharing the archetype clarity quiz as well. And I'm sure I'll see you again. I'm sure we'll do another conversation for sure.
I'm so excited. I think my energy showed it. It was such an amazing conversation. I'm really grateful for the invitation to be here with you. It was really beautiful and enriching for me conversation, and I hope, and I'm looking forward to, I hope that our audience enjoys it, and I'm looking forward to be co-creating with all of you, answering questions. So feel free to connect with me, and it was amazing. Thank you so much for what you're doing. I was inspired to watch your previous interviews, and this is a beautiful space that empowers people. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Iskra. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And I shall see you next week for the next conversation. Bye.
Amazing.